Okay.
All right, we are live now. And I'm delighted that we are live now because, guys, I just think that it's the right time to come out and explain why we left the left. And myself and Anna here, we're united in our extreme condemnation of this left wing extremism that's happening in Germany at the moment. So we all completely
Yes.
oppose it. We are
We were
absolutely
brainwashed.
appalled. Yeah, no, we are appalled uh, by people fighting to defend themselves uh, from fascist dictators. We hate that. We hate people
We hate it. We hate it. How could
protecting
they do that? So
minorities.
anti-democratic and violent.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah,
know?
but
Did you, Paul?
yeah.
I heard. Did you know that Stalin killed 200 million people? I've
To,
never heard that before. It completely changed my entire perception of everything. Like everything that I had been raised with is a lie. It's
No, I'll tell you what
crazy.
that is. 200. That's actually, you've been listening to communist propaganda. It's actually 300 guerrillion. Yeah, you've been misled. You've been dramatically
Oh my
misled.
God.
So many more people have
The
been killed.
liberal propaganda again.
It
Oh
was
my
the libs.
God.
It's the woke agenda. The
They
woke agenda.
love they
Stalin,
love Stalin.
let me tell you,
Did you
just
know
the
that
left
Stalin
side.
was a man of color and trans?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
He's
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
enemy of the people.
He's
Literally,
the one putting the drops in the water that's turning the freaking frogs gay.
how could he do that? Literally so upsetting.
I
I
know.
love frogs too. I love when they're straight. I love LOL.
All right, all right. Yeah, all
The
right.
joke's over.
Let's
It's
stop
too
let's
long.
stop fucking
Too
around.
long.
Yeah, we're drawing it out. How are you getting on, everybody? Hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to Marxism today with the one and only notorious Casamang Anna, and
Hello.
hello, and of course yours truly, Paul Connolly. Today we are going to be discussing a recent case in Germany which saw the harsh conviction of an anti-fascist activist known as Lena E, a supposed left-wing extremist, as well as popular unrest in response to the conviction. Now today we're going to be discussing what happened, why it's significant, and how we should understand the differences between fascist and anti-fascist activism. And then after that, we're going to have a ton of fun. We're just going to be doing a little bit of Q&A with you, the viewers, having a bit of crack and enjoying ourselves. So, before we jump into that, before we jump into the meat of the conversation, Anna, how have you been? Where have you been? What's the crack?
Oh, well, I've been on planet Earth. I've been good. Honestly, I have been I finished my semester, which is really nice. I no longer have two jobs. I have one job and a half. I don't know. And so that's great. And I'm going to my archaeology school soon, which is really fun. What else? Oh, I have a fun story. So, in a relatively recent time at an undisclosed gas station, I was
Uh-oh.
waiting I was waiting to get my gas, right? And it was behind this car because there's only one like open. Well, not open, but like everything was all like everyone was taking up everything else. So there was one where it was like just one person there and I didn't have to wait over many people and it was just one guy trying to put in his gas. But okay, he was really mad at this machine and he was not working for him, but then he saw me and because I'm a girl, he was like, "Okay, well I'm going to use this time to harass this girl or whatever." And he was like so creepy towards me. I had to pull up my like window because I like have my windows
Wow.
down. It is summer. Like, hello. But okay, so he I don't know what he did, but he got really angry at the machine and angry that I had like pulled up my window. So he hit the machine, okay? And then he drove off, okay? And so I was like, whatever, it's my turn. So I went up and then you know how it says put your card in like when you go to fill up gas? So it didn't say that. It said lift nozzle. Um like you know when after you pay and
Yep.
it approves your card, it cost him $50 to catcall me that day.
Oh, shit. He was paying for
So
it.
that was
That's the woke
definitely
agenda in action right there.
that was a woke agenda. It was a great day. Like it's been the highlight of my entire month so far. I just had to tell that story because I need validation. I need that validation from the internet that I am so girl boss that this just happened to me. Like I love this.
Jesus.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'd really sympathize with you if I hadn't just left the left, but yeah,
Yeah.
I
How are
suppose that.
you, Paul?
I have
Did
been
were you able to steal
good.
money from anyone recently?
Yeah, well, see, I left the left, so that's fantastic. I've just been grifting. I've just been grifting away. I started up like a Twitch channel, and just been talking about how I left the left, and I've been making
Mhm.
tons of money. I've got a segment on. I don't know if there's
Wow.
this little channel called PragerU. You ever heard about it? It's
Oh
a
my
little thing. It's a little
God.
thing I do on
That's
the
my
side.
favorite channel. I
Yeah,
love them.
I
Oh my
love
gosh.
that.
I
Yeah,
love Prager.
yeah, no, they're
I
class. So
have been
that's what I've
trying
been
to
doing.
apply for them for months. I'm trying to join. I would be the best like person to explain what socialism is on there. They would love me. Like I would
Yeah,
give so much insight. Oh my
yeah,
God.
we could really help explain how Hitler and National Socialism are actually left-wing ideologies. We could
For sure.
we could really help them, add clarity to these important discussions. Of
Oh
course,
no. Oh,
yeah,
oh.
yeah, but no, but to be real, like
Oh,
where I've been, I've been trying to find a job. I've just been like running up and down every place in Dublin, just trying to find a job, and
please,
it's
please
fucking.
take me.
It's been so bad.
You're
I got to that.
begging
I got to
on
that
the
point,
streets.
right? I got to that point where, like, I literally have no money. I have like no money to survive, right? So I thought, okay, well, I gotta go and get a fucking job. That's how you get
Mhm.
money. But because I was doing that, I wasn't making YouTube videos. And YouTube videos are like the one thing that's actually giving me money to pay my fucking bills. So I was like, oh shit, I gotta get this shit together. So
What a drama.
it's
Dilemma.
like it's like crazy, like all at once. But yeah, basically I've been looking for jobs, been doing interviews. Holy shit, AI interviews. It seems like they're using ChatGPT now to do
What?
fucking
They're doing
interview.
AI interviews
Yeah,
now? What are you
literally.
talking about?
Well, I
How does
mean,
that even happen?
right now it's just like like the little chat box thing. Just like, let's say you're having like a messenger conversation on, Twitter DMs or something like that, or
Hmm.
Facebook or something like that. Whatever the kids are using these days.
On like the fake like AI
Snapchat.
Snapchat BS
Yeah.
that's going on? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
But for a job interview?
Yeah, for job interviews. That's what they're using it now. They're using AI to automate job interviews. And then they give you like a
Bro.
fucking afterwards they send back to you and they let you know like your strengths and your weaknesses and shit like that, which is nice because I don't get them when I do in-person interviews. They just fucking don't call me. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I left and the woke agenda is polluting their
Yeah.
minds or whatever. But at least I get an automated response from the AIs. So what I'm saying is this is actually good. This is actually a good thing, and I'm delighted
That is
that I can't find work. And and here
if
we
Marx
are.
was alive right now to hear how far the isolation of working class has gone. You have a machine saying this was
Oh,
good, but in order to sell yourself to this
oh,
employer, you have to be better. What? The employer is not even pretending to care about you when they're interviewing. That's
maximize that
crazy.
surplus labor.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
extracts.
bro.
All
LOL.
right, but no, but for real, this is cool though because this this like fight or flight panic. It's like, oh shit, I got nothing to do. We're like, oh shit, let's see if we can do some shit on the channel. Let's do more shit
Yeah.
on Marxism today. Let's do it. So we got talking. You and I got talking. We said, shit, let's just make a bunch of videos and see what happens. And then maybe we can get some of that ad revenue. Bada bing, bada boom. We might not
Bada
even need to
bang.
leave the left and grift our way out on Twitch. We might not even need to. We can actually just talk about
Yeah.
important shit. The
We might just
news.
make another stream. We had the idea. We had the unique idea of let's make a podcast.
That's what the world needs.
We
That's
are
what the world needs. More
capitalism
people, more
breeds
people who look like
ingenuity.
me.
Like we are so smart. Like, but yeah,
That's all I'm saying, Anna. They just need people who look like me telling the world how it is. Like, guys, let's just
exactly.
be real. Let's just be
That's just
real.
like
This is how the
it's
world is.
really
Can we just be
lacking.
real? We just need to be real for a second.
Let's be real.
Let's be
Okay,
real.
we need more people like you in
Like me,
power. Okay.
specifically.
Yes, that looks like you.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Yeah.
We are
No, I agree.
lacking diversity wise. Do you
Yeah.
understand? The woke agenda is trying to take you out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. No, no, no. I'm the victim. I'm the
I rest my
victim
case
of
because
all of
then they'll
this.
shut off the internet if I keep talking about this.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, if the
They'll,
internet's cutting out at the moment,
they're
that's
watching
obviously
me.
it's the
They're
it's
watching me.
the globalists. That feels weird. Even saying that, even joking about globalists feels fucking weird, doesn't it? It feels like, oh shit, no, that's like a step too far, man. I don't.
Yeah, it is. LOL. LOL.
Yeah, because
Me
obviously that's like
looking
an
at you.
anti-Semitic thing. All right, we're fucking
Me
around. All
being
right, that's
like, do you see this shit, Hashem? Do you see this? This is
someone's
why
gonna
they
clip
say the
this.
anti. This is why they say the left is anti-Semitic. Have you seen Paul?
Listen, the
Look
real
at it.
problem is global. No, okay, anyway.
No,
All right,
oh my God.
capitalism, imperialism. Let's talk about that. Let's not
Bang
go into
bang.
the
Shoot
the
me
MAGA
dead.
communist
Shoot
shit.
me dead.
Let's
Okay.
not let's not go into that. All right, cool. So that's what we're gonna be doing.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking about important shit, news, current affairs, theory, through our own scientific socialist lens, analysis, and perspective. So I hope you all enjoy this. How you all getting on in the chat? I hope you are keeping well. If you want to ask us questions, make sure to type at Marxism today. So that's going to be highlighted for me. I'll see that in the chats. I'll copy and paste your question into a little document, and we'll come around to those at the end of the stream, and we'll have a little chat afterwards, and maybe have a little bit of fun, depending on how much time Anna has. I'm not 100% sure. We
I
didn't talk.
have
We didn't talk
all the
about that
time
beforehand.
in the world. I work in the morning. You know this. I work in the
Oh yeah.
morning. My entire afternoon is just chilling and being on my phone and doomed scrolling through Twitter. So I'm good whenever you
Well,
want to get off. Because isn't it like later? Isn't
yeah.
there time zones?
There's
I'm just
there's
trying
there's
to find
always
the words.
later.
What is it? I don't know.
There's
Yeah.
always later.
Okay,
We got like an hour
cool.
or two. We
I'm
can chill.
down, is what I'm
Great.
saying.
All right, so we will do that. Fantastic. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's stop messing around. No more tomfoolery from us. The people have had enough. The masses have waited long enough. Left-wing extremism in Germany. So, what happened in Germany? Anna, do you want to take this, or will I?
Yeah. So, very recently, there's an anti-fascist called Lena E. They haven't provided the last name. I'm assuming it's for privacy reasons. She's been sentenced for more than 5 years of prison, allegedly for busting a neo-Nazi's kneecaps. Based. But anyway, she and a couple of other anti-fascists have been accused of deliberately assaulting and training to assault neo-Nazis in their local area. But most of the evidence against them has been kind of murky and mostly relying on a witness testimony by a former member or the organization or social group, anti-fascist social group. It wasn't really clearly defined what it was. Maybe it was just like a friend group or something, that Lena and the others were a part of, as well as the testimony of the victims, part of the largest neo-Nazi party in Germany, the victims, you know? So goes without saying, the allegations are very shaky. The main witness, the former member, changed his story multiple times, started by saying these attacks were premeditated, and then switched his story and said they were not, that they were not like premeditated and that they just learned martial arts together for fun. So it's very sus. And also the sentencing is absolutely ridiculous. Why would you put someone in jail for over 5 years just for fighting someone? It's just been, do you have any other thoughts on that, Paul? Because I literally, when I was listening to this, like I was listening to a radio about this as well as scrolling through Twitter, I literally could not, I was flabbergasted. I was like, what the hell? Yeah.
5 years. Like, okay, I could get it if it was like a misdemeanor. If they wanted to pull like a misdemeanor, okay, you beat some people up. Okay, whatever. You got into some fights, maybe like 6 months. 6 months, like a suspended
Yeah.
sentence or something. I could kind of understand they wanted to make like they wanted to make a statement, do a little slap on the wrist, something like that, you know. But Jesus Christ, what is it? 5 years and 3 months? Like that's insane. That is insane that they're doing
It is
this.
insane. You know, that's longer than they've put like an actual like convicted Nazi like death camp like soldier guard in jail for. Like they convicted him for being a Nazi death camp guard, Demjanjuk. He had fled to the US, right? And then
Yeah.
he was extradited to the state of Israel first, and then he was extradited to Germany. Where he was charged, but this was like when he was like dying of old age, so he never actually served this time. He just died while there was like an acquittal process over this sentencing. So basically the German state has said very explicitly that busting a neo-Nazi's kneecaps is just as bad as literally being complicit in the genocide of people in a Nazi death camp. About 30,000 people can be linked to this specific like former like Nazi death camp soldier who's gratefully dead now. Thank you, Hashem. But literally like that's ridiculous. It just goes to show that like Germany cracks down on the left way more than they do on the right, despite the fact that they say that like we're against Nazism, we're against like anti-Semitism, but I'll talk about that a little bit later too. But I want to hand it off to Paul to hear any of your wonderful thoughts on this.
My wonderful thoughts are, what the fuck? Like an actual Nazi in a
Beautiful.
death camp. Jesus, like an extermination camp,
Yeah.
I'm assuming. Like the full on fucking
Yeah,
shebang. Not
yeah.
even not even just like a fucking like labor camp, like the actual extermination camps is getting off with the same fucking treatment as this person who what? Like beat the shit out of a couple of dickheads.
Not even
Jesus
like literally they're
Christ.
probably a bunch of crybabies. It probably didn't even hurt that much. Like literally they maybe hurt their knees. Like cry me a river. You didn't die. Okay, you can go back to your parents' house and cry to your like rich parent and get the surgery done and be fine. Okay, Lena's a G. Free my girl Lena. But anyway, anyway.
But we don't support left-wing extremism
We
or
don't
or
support left-wing
violence or any
extremism.
of that because we
Violence of
left
any
the
kind
left.
is bad, and I mean that very genuinely.
We're being sincere. These
We
are our
are.
sincere faces.
We are being so sincere. But yeah,
Yeah, so listen, I just wanna read on redherald.org. It's a very good socialist with an MLM sort of perspective news website. They do news articles, all things like that. Redheralds.org just summed up some of the events that have been have underlay these convictions. So these are the allegations that have been put against Lena E, and I believe maybe three other activists. I think four activists in
yeah.
total have been sentenced now. So Lena E and then three others. So I just want to read this out really quickly. I'm not going to have it up on the screen, unfortunately. We're working a new camera setup at the moment, so I haven't quite figured that out. But maybe for the next one we'll be able to make that happen. So I'll try and speak as clearly as possible. So this is from redherald.org, and the last day or two
Narrate to us.
I will narrate to you to the best of my ability. So, the anti-fascists are convicted for carrying out 6 different militant actions. In October 2018, 500 men are said to have attacked a fascist in Wurzen, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The fascist was choked and beaten up with telescopic batons and fists, and he was jumped on. In January 2019, a man who was wearing a hat often used by fascists was attacked in Leipzig, Konowitz. In October 2019, a restaurant owner by the fascist Leon Ringel was attacked by around a dozen people. The owner and 5 guests were hit by batons. In December of the same year, the anti-fascists are said to have followed Leon Ringel to his apartment, where they again attacked him and 3 of his companions with sticks, a hammer, and a wheel wrench. After the attack, 2 cars were stopped by the police. The cars were using stolen license plates. So they definitely thought ahead if this is true. Again, these are all just
That's
allegations.
smart. I'm not endorsing this and I'm not
We are
saying it's
not.
true, but interesting.
It's interesting the level of preparation that these people have gone to in these attacks. In February, alleged attacks. In February 2020, 6 Nazis were beaten up to 20 people with batons. The anti-fascists are said to have followed the fascist on the train after they had participated in a march to commemorate the bombing of Dresden during the Second World War. The Nazis were said to have had potentially life-threatening injuries. And the last of the alleged actions took place in June 2020. The anti-fascists are said to have been scouting the home of a fascist when they were arrested by the police. They were released after a few days, but Lena was again arrested on the 5th of November after the federal prosecutor took over the case. Another additional note, particularly relating to organization, as you were discussing a second ago, Hendrik Hansen, a professor at the Federal University of Applied Administrative Sciences in Germany, stated the following regarding the actions. This was a group of people planning attacks so minutely that they were using the appropriate technology like disposable mobile phones. They had scouts who spied on the victims. The tasks within the group were very precisely divided up. The defense lawyers have claimed that the trial was politically motivated. The German state is accused of ignoring the crimes of fascists while they strive to find the crimes of, quote, left extremists. Again, that's redherald.org reporting on the allegations and the convictions that have happened there. So what are your thoughts on that?
First of
Obviously,
all,
you're totally opposed to everything that happened
totally,
there.
it was horrifying just hearing that has put like such a deep-seated hatred and pity for the left in my heart. My initial thoughts on this is with given the fact that like the people that are being attacked are neo-Nazis, it's a little bit hard for me as a Jewish person to sympathize. But obviously so bad. Violence is so bad. But I think that when we think about like neo-Nazism and we frame the people that are kind of like allegedly um involved in this, which I mean I say allegedly as a joke, but like it's actually true. All of this stuff is really alleged. Like they can't really like trace this concretely to any of the people that have been convicted.
Mhm.
um I feel that they always talk about how like this person is a fascist from this part, and they were putting up a demonstration that was threatening like the people of that area, and then oh no, an anti-fascist group came and opposed them. I think that the framing of the fascists in this case as victims of left-wing violence is kind of really stupid. I think that it's kind
Real.
of like I think it's dumb.
This is
But
dumb.
I mean this is dumb. That's my review. This is dumb. But like yeah, I mean like I don't know. I have some thoughts also about how like the German government in general has been using kind of like anti-Semitism as a pretense to silence Palestinian and other left-wing organizers, like who stand up to Germany's complicity and support with the state of Israel. But like this past month, German police violently cracked down on a vigil and a protest commemorating the Nakba, which was organized by Jewish and Palestinian solidarity allies, and their excuse was for disrupting it and arresting those in this action was their pretense for banning all the protests as well is that this would cause an anti-Semitic incitement of the people. Um, but we can clearly see they're lying over their concern over anti-Semitism by this bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're concerned about anti-Semitism, your primary concern should be neo-Nazis, especially and people that pander to neo-Nazi like and far right ideas about like and anti-Semitic opinions and conspiracy theories, which all of these people were, right? And not only that, let's not forget that 1,400 members of the police, military, and intelligence in Germany have been found to be involved in far right extremist actions. A figure which is most likely higher, they just found these people. They did a quick little investigation after they found that dozens of police officers were being suspended for joining far right chat groups and sharing neo-Nazi propaganda, right? And apart from that, also German forces, an entire unit of German forces, a company of them, were found to have like explosives and stuff like that and SS memorabilia. Like it's a whole issue, right?
An issue.
But they
It's an issue.
yeah, it's a
It's an
whole issue,
issue.
of course. But
We should
like,
just talk about it.
but they don't want to, right? Like when they talk about like anti-Semitism, they pin it on left-wingers and anti-imperialists, right? Apart from the fact that like the far right in Germany is rising. It's aided by QAnon, it's on the rise, and popular support for the AfD, a far right, like German nationalist party, which we all know what the fuck that means and what they pander towards, like, is increasing, and almost 50% of the population would vote in favor of them over any other party. So their claim that they're suppressing anti-Semitism by having like people in a police force where there has been found like 1,400 people being involved in neo-Nazi activity, arresting Jewish people who are like commemorating the Nakba as like preventing anti-Semitism is insane. And when someone, let it be Lena if she actually did it, but goes and fights against these neo-Nazis, she gets thrown in jail. I don't understand, right? Like what is your stance on anti-Semitism? I don't really get it. Um it's just really stupid when we actually put up a barrier, because of course people like Lena don't trust the police because they're literally swarmed with all this anti-Semitic bullshit, right? Like all of this far right ideology. So like, why can't we protect ourselves from, like, why can't they protect themselves from anti-Semitism, from these Nazis, especially since the people that are supposedly protecting them, like according to like bourgeois liberalism, are so infected with this disease that they're trying to eliminate, and that is putting a chokehold on the working class and seeks to further oppress it and, you know, marginalize people in Germany, specifically Jewish people and immigrants and so on, and like gay people as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Like I just, it's so hypocritical, and I hate that like liberal governments, especially in places where like there is such anti-Semitic history and it's still being perpetuated, and most people are still anti-Semitic, especially in the government, like use anti-Semitism as like some kind of like way to silence people, when in reality, like we know they're anti-Semites, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Well, you know, what strikes me when you're saying that is this emphasis on the fact that this is fighting back against neo-Nazis, right? So
Yeah, in the
I
most literal sense.
literally,
Like,
I mean, these neo-Nazi groups like NSU, National Socialist Underground, I think it's Underground, these guys are literally murdering people. These are murdering people, murdering minorities, just for who they are, not for what they've done, just for who they are, right? I think that this is really interesting. The framing that we're seeing of this conversation right now. You know, you've got these, what we're seeing are, you know, left-wing extremists. You know, these are absolutely these are being demonized. You know, you read liberal media like what Deutsche Welle, DW.com, one of the really major liberal media sources in Germany, completely demonizing these guys for combating fascists. You know,
yeah,
meanwhile, these far right terrorists have unironically been attempting to overthrow the current German state. They are on the offensive. You know, just this past December, as people will remember, 25 people, including a monarchist who styles himself as Heinrich VIII, Prince of Rus. I don't know how to pronounce that. But these guys were plotting to overthrow the German government on behalf of the far right, anti-Semitic Reichsbürger, or Burger? I never know how to pronounce the U with the umlaut on
it's
top,
one
but
of those incest names. You don't need to know how to pronounce it. It's
I
one
don't
of
need to
those
know.
names that shouldn't
I don't need to know.
exist. It should not be uttered.
Reichsbürger? Anyway, Citizens of the Reich is what it is anyway. So basically fighting on
Oh,
behalf of this
geez.
Citizens of the Reich movement, which is a thing, you know. And which I think this is interesting because these far right terrorists, these extremists, are trying to seize power for themselves. Lena E and these people who are fighting fascism aren't doing that. They are not trying to seize power for themselves. This is fighting back against fascism, all right? This is defensive rather than offensive action. And I don't know about you, but I don't think there's anything that extreme about self-defense, even if it's preemptive, even if it's something that you realize, okay, these guys are planning to kill me next week, so I'm going to prevent that from happening. You know, I'm going to just stop that from
Yeah.
happening. I'm just going to
And
do something
like,
to stop that, you know?
and not only that, like especially in a country with a history of like fascism like Germany, like are you insane? Like these people, their grandparents and shit would see like how like the Weimar Republic was literally overtaken by like fascists, right? And like the Weimar Republic like cracked down on communists, they cracked down on anti-fascists and stuff like that. So they're seeing history repeat again, where they're being like punished worse for being anti-fascist, for standing up against fascists and actually taking action than actual fascists. And what happened like in the Weimar Republic? What happened in the rise of the Third Reich, right? All these people, all these liberals in government that were standing against the interests of the people by fighting against anti-fascists and letting fascists into the government, right? Like they're doing with the AFD right now. They got the night of long knives. Like they're
Yep.
literally working against themselves, right? You should be like, we should all, even if you're, heaven forbid, a liberal, okay, you have to, you have no interest as like a working class person in fascism you barely have an interest in fascism as a like petty bourgeois person either, or as a national bourgeoisie. Like you just don't have that. So this is just stupidity, but it just goes really to show how like the ruling class will always side with fascism over like any type of like socialist or progressive movement, just because that is the only movement that will protect their capital and their private property. If
Mm,
fascism took over Germany, all the German oligarchs would be fine, right?
yeah.
But yeah, it's just so upsetting and so it's like people don't understand. Like you see history repeating itself, and
Yeah.
people are just like standing there stupid and just willing to like repeat the same method that definitely worked by voting out the Nazis and like the Weimar Republic that one last time. Like literally, I just don't even understand. It's so stupid. But
The thing
yeah.
is, like that's exactly what I was alluding to. That's exactly the point I was trying to make, which you made it much better than I did. But this is an existential threat. You understand? Like, if you get these monarchists, these fascists, and by the way, this mystification that happens of fascism, look at National Socialism, look at Nazism, look at this, look at Führer principle. It's all about delegating power to one person who sits above all else. Ultimate power. It is monarchical. It's an updated monarchical system. It works very well for people like these so-called princes and so on and so forth. But it's just people look forward. People think, what's going to happen if these guys come to power? Well, what happened last time? The camps were opened. Okay, people who were a little bit different, people who were minorities of all sorts, Jewish people, Roma people, queers, all kinds of people chucked into these camps. Okay, initially concentration camps, then extermination camps. How would you respond to that kind of situation if you saw that emerging again and you realized that in 10 years your country is going to open up camps that are going to do this to you, do what happened historically to you, potentially, because history doesn't necessarily repeat itself. It's on a circle, but it does often rhyme. It's often like an ascending spiral going upwards like that. This to me can only be perceived as preemptive self-defense to root out fascist ideology, which I think is really, really important. And again, it's the ideology as opposed to the people, because that's the thing we understand. We are socialists, we're scientific socialists, we're into dialectical materialism. We believe that everything is constantly in a state of change and development as a result of struggle. And through struggle, things can become their opposites, okay? Night turns into day, day turns into night, life becomes death, death becomes life, so on and so forth. All the basics of dialectics. This is a fundamentally humanizing ideology. When you look at the ideology of the fascists, they are traditionalists who believe that things don't change, that history is just an endless circle. It goes around and around. And within this, your enemies are always your enemies, and they can never be anything but your enemies. And so what does that mean? That means the only solution is to get rid of them, because they can never be changed. We, as socialists, understand that people can change. Through struggle, people can change, things can change, situations can change, everything can change. This is core to our philosophy. Okay? It's not core to their philosophy. And this is the massive, major problem with drawing these equivalences between right-wing, far-right extremists, terrorism, and left-wing self-defense, anti-fascism. We can never pull the bullshit liberal horseshoe theory nonsense. And by the way, we're not even talking about revolutionary communists who are trying to, seize the state apparatus and establish a dictatorship of proletariat or anything like that. We're talking about a broad front of all kinds of progressives who oppose fascism, from liberals, social democrats, anarchists, Marxist-Leninists, Maoists, all kinds of people. All these people, all of us are united in this fight to root out fascism. Okay, that is not left-wing extremism. That is self-defense and preservation.
Yeah, and that self-defense and preservation is like demonized like this because it stands up against the interests of the ruling class, right? Like as I said
Mm.
just now, fascism does not stand against the interests of the ruling class. In fact, fascism and ideologies that are associated with fascism, for example, in the instance of Nazism, it shifts the blame from the capitalist class to an enemy, right? So obviously every single strand of fascism is horrifying. And I think that like talking about neo-Nazism specifically, it's not just a fascist ideology, it's a genocidal one, right? You could make the argument that yes, okay, every single fascist ideology at the end of the day is a genocidal one, right? But Nazism specifically sets out to exterminate people, right? So it's not an ideology that you can have like agree to disagree with. You can't have that with neo-Nazism. You can't have that with fascism either, but especially not a fascism like neo-Nazism, because the very fact that people are upset that someone fought someone who wants to exterminate the entire Jewish people, the entire Roman nation, right? The all gay people, anyone who isn't white, and the person that hit him, that you know broke his legs, whatever happened, literally is the person that's frowned upon. And like I posted about this, for example, on TikTok, and I had a bunch of people from Germany being like, "Well, she hurt him." Well, like I don't care. You understand this? Like, and like, first of all, what she's doing is protecting everyone by doing that. Like, there to say that like she is the person in this situation that is wrong is entirely stupid. And this is why like fascism is allowed to take up the space that it needs, both because it's being peddled by the ruling class and also because what we've been taught that like, oh, fascism is just as bad as like, or actually better than left-wing ideologies, what we were taught by the cultural hegemony of the ruling class. But we allow these things to go. So like we have to be involved as like left-wingers in anti-fascism because we have to put up that defense. It's genuinely getting scary. I mean, like it's always scary, I know. And like I know this is like stupid, but yeah, it is genuinely getting scary, especially for people like, I mean, for example, me, right? I literally outside of like the White House, like 3 months ago or so, I was there. I don't know. I was like there talking about the Philippine Human Rights Act and stuff like that. A lib moment, but not at all. But so I went out and I saw this guy holding a sign. I was like, whatever, people hold signs outside of the White House. So I walked past him and then I realized too late that his sign had a swastika on it. Okay. And he spat
Ooh.
on me and he was like, his sign was something stupid like ban like blooded circumcision or something like that. He like, you know, he was being anti-Semitic. Like he
Yeah.
had the swastika up there and stuff. But like you see that shit, you know? And it's just like I'm like as someone who like is Jewish, right? Like seeing people like be upset at someone for fighting against that. Like if anything, I'm mad at myself for not fighting against that guy, right? I mean, I was afraid and I walked away, right? But there was police officers there, right? There was
What did
a
they
bunch
do?
of other people there and they did nothing, right? Because of this stupid like free speech bullshit that doesn't get extended towards left-wing activists. I mean, as someone who like does activism in DC, I can tell you about how like the police came out in full riot gear when like there was Black Lives Matter protests. But when January 6th happened, no one was like being protected at all. Later on during the day, they saw that they were getting too destructive and they sent shit. But like before the protests even happened, like when during 2020, because of the murder of George Floyd and many other Black people in the United States by police officers, they had already set up, right? They had already set up shop. So it's just really interesting. And it's, you know, like we have to get out of this narrative that it's extreme to want to defend yourself, or it's extreme to stand up for yourself and for like other people within the working class that are suffering. It's, yeah, I don't know. It's sad to me. It's very angering, but it's very agitating as well.
extreme to want to survive. I mean, Jesus Christ, how have we
Literally, how
gotten?
could I? How could I? How could we, right?
I don't know how we've gotten here, but I mean, this is where we're at.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why I left the left, obviously. But I mean, you
Yeah.
guys need to figure this shit out now. But speaking of the
Oh,
left, speaking of the left, this is really really important. There's a party in Germany called the Left, Die Linke, Die Linke, something like that, right? And they played an important role in this situation. Not so much, obviously, in like the court orders or the convictions or anything like that, but in the ensuing public response to this situation. Um, so afterwards, as people know, there was this thing on Saturday, Day X, Tag X, I guess is what it was called, and it was meant to be this big protest. They were saying like free Lena, and it was basically opposing this ridiculous, horrific, heavy-handed approach that the courts were taking 5 years and 3 months. Again, as you said, comparable to people who were literally there in Nazi death camps. The masses are very fucking upset about this, and rightfully so. And they wanted to protest. They wanted to protest this. They wanted to take to the streets and say, this is not okay. All right. And that's part of any healthy, functioning democratic society. People do this. People take to the streets. Okay. Now, now, here's the thing. In Leipzig, the protests, this demonstration of Tag X or Day X, was banned. It was prohibited. It was said this couldn't go ahead. And the problem here is that this actually fell to Die Linke. Die Linke, the so-called left party, was responsible for stamping off on this and giving the thumbs up to say, yes, we will prohibit this protest. So I'm going to read out from Dem Volksdienen. Again, I'm probably mispronouncing it. Again, a very good socialist news source. And what they wrote on this is that what's mostly ignored in the many criticisms is that the final decision to ban the demonstration was made by the city of Leipzig, i.e., at the municipal level. In contrast to the state government, the city council in Leipzig is not led by a CDU man, that's the Christian Democratic Union, nor by an SPD member or a Green Party member, but by Heiko Rosenthal from the Left Party, or Die Linke. As mayor of Leipzig, Rosenthal is directly responsible for the Public Order Office, which is responsible for the approval process for demonstrations and which, at the behest of the police and the Office for the Protection of the Constitution, declared the Day X demo to be banned. This means that a member of the so-called Left Party, the party that's repeatedly tried to ingratiate itself with the left-wing movement by feigning support for Lena, is now banning the central solidarity demonstration for the imprisoned anti-fascist. Again, that's from Dem Volksdienen. So, Jesus Christ, the left, the Linke, are the ones who signed off on the cracking down of this protest. Holy shit, these guys call themselves democratic socialists. The center left are betraying the masses in Germany.
something,
Have
something,
you ever heard of
something,
that?
social democracy, the moderate wing of fascism, something,
Who
something.
said that? Some bad person who killed 300 gorillion, I'm sure,
Who
with
said
the
that?
left
Who
side
said
of his
that? Who said
mustache.
that? I don't know. What was he?
Hey,
He was spitting. But anyway, yeah, this
but
is such a left, like social democrat, like European thing. Like, like in Spain, it's the same way right now. The president right now is part of PSOE, which is the party of the workers, which is really a SocDem party, and they played a really major role in like condemning like protests against the arrest of Pablo Hasél, for example. Like many like were like, oh, he shouldn't have been arrested, but then they were like, but violence is bad, and all that stuff. Like it's just so they constantly disappoint, don't they? They give so little and expect so much,
oh
but
man,
it's so stupid
listen,
too.
I have to say, when people come straight out the door and they're just like, oh, all social democrats are social fascists, fuck them all.
Hmm.
Social democracy
Yeah,
is the moderate wing of fascism, objectively the moderate wing of fascism.
who would ever say that?
What kind of giga child would say that? No, 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 no. Genuinely, I take issue with people who say that generally because they're often not
Hmm.
distinguishing between like genuinely progressive rank and file people who want socialism, but who are
Yeah.
misguided. They believe that we can achieve this through a peaceful, incremental, reformist process. And I'm
Hmm.
very keen to delineate between these well-meaning individuals and the rank and file and the leadership who are actively misguiding these people.
Yeah.
You know, I think that that's very important. So, like, not everybody who's fallen into social democracy is evil or bad or a fascist. Jesus fucking Christ,
No.
no.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
leaders, however, who are consciously counter-revolutionary, who are consciously opposing anti-fascists, who are consciously opposing communists and socialists and anarchists and all other forms of leftists, these people are definitely, these need to be called out and addressed. And Die Linke here
Yeah.
is showing that again and again. Something which, unfortunately, we've seen in Germany's history. We know what they did to Rosa. We know what the SPD did to
Yeah.
Rosa Luxemburg and the
And like think
Freikorps.
about it this way, right? Like this is a left-wing party that is running like for office in a government that was set up like after the fall of Nazi Germany, right? Like this was basically the same government that was like in West Germany. And when East Germany fell, they took over, right? So this is a government that had like many former like Nazis in it. And it was a government that was aligned with the United States and capitalist countries during the Cold War. So it's a government that you can't have a left wing like person in that government, left wing, that hasn't sold out and who isn't kind of lying, right? Because they know that like this this country, Germany, is part of like this capitalist imperialist class, and it's very much aligned to it, right? Especially the Western imperialist class. But the people that vote for like these parties, they do it because they have a genuine want to see change within their society. Like that's how like I equate people that voted for Bernie, right, here in the
Mm.
United States, or people who vote, I guess, like, you know, in Spain or in the Philippines for progressive people, even though we know that like it's the you can't vote in like socialism through a capitalist country, like we know that through capitalist elections. But you know, we also think that like concessions that improve the quality of life for the working class is good, but we can't make those same excuses for the leaders like
Yeah.
Rosenthal, for example. I can't make an excuse for him, right? Like and we shouldn't, right? And that's why we like, I mean, at least like people on the revolutionary left and stuff like that, like that's why we critique Rosenthal, and that's why we critique SocDems, right? We talk about their leaders and the people that like clearly are trying to represent the left within a capitalist perspective that deems it like an acceptable way to express it, right? That's why he condemned these protests. So that's what I mean. Like, I mean, he is definitely in this situation being an aid to kind of like this fascist wave, right? Because he's not like supporting anti-fascist action against this. He's supporting the state prosecuting anti-fascist action. So yeah.
Yeah, no, hard agree, and definitely fuck these people. These are awful. These are misguiding people, and the people need to understand that it's actual socialists, actual communists, even actual anarchists, sincere, dedicated, committed socialists. These are the ones you need to look to. The social democrats are going to sell you out. That's all they've historically done, and so it's a case of elevating people to understanding that and understanding why that is. You know. And I know, of course, it's a tricky conversation to have because the term social democracy means different things to different people. We know that historically, Lenin called himself a social democrat, you know, in the early 1900s, late 1800s, before moving on to communism later on. Lots of people called themselves social democrats around the period of the Second International. It initially just meant what we would now consider communists. Then it became reformist socialist, a socialist who just wanted to achieve socialism through incremental reforms. And now social democracy just means welfare capitalism. That's all it means. It means capitalism with an enhanced welfare state. You know, maybe some free healthcare, free education, all these sorts of things, which in themselves, by the way, are progressive demands. Of course, people want these things. Of course, we want to take these out of the commodity circuit of capitalism. Of course, we want to return these back to the people. The people have worked hard and earned all of these things. They should not have capitalists taking these from them. The question is, who can actually deliver that? And the people who can deliver that are actual socialists, not the social democrats. And so
Yeah.
that's a really important point to make, I think, and you really brought that out very well there. And I also
Yeah.
want to say it's really badass that in spite of this ban, in spite of the opposition and the obstacles laid out by the Linke and all of these other people at the municipal level and around the country, the state forces who tried to crack down on this, despite this, about 1,500 anti-fascists turned up anyway to do the demonstration on Saturday, and they were met with the expected response. They were met with the heavy hands of the repressive state. They brought out the water gun machines to mow down the protesters and stuff. I don't know if they actually used them, but there was definitely a lot of heavy-handed activity, a lot of scuffles that broke out with the police and the protesters and so on. And if I'm not mistaken, about 300 people have been detained as a result of that protest. But yeah, solidarity to all of the people who got out and actually fought for Lena and for everybody who fights against fascism. Solidarity to those people. It's really
massive
inspiring.
Solidarity.
Really inspiring.
I'm really I really admire the left in Germany, especially with everything that has been going on to them, in recent history, of course, but even the history of the left in Germany, how it has been so violently repressed, and yet it continues to thrive. It continues to be a huge influence in mobilizing against these fascist tendencies, mobilizing actions, defending their community. The left in Germany is something to truly admire, especially because of all of the obstacles that have been put in their way. And it goes without saying, they were the primary people that were against the Nazi Party since its inception, right? And they continue to be so clearly today. And I can definitely admire them for that myself.
Yep, hard agree. All right, fantastic. I really appreciated your insights into this. It was great talking about this matter with you. If you feel okay about it, I think it would be cool to open it up to Q&As now. Does that sound okay with you? Or did you
That
want
sounds horrible. How could you do that to me? Yeah, I'm down.
We're
Let's
leaving.
do it.
We're leaving the left. We're leaving the stream. We're out. We're not
How
doing
dare
Q&A.
you?
That was a
How dare
joke.
you?
We're not actually.
Yeah.
All right,
No.
folks. If you want to ask us any questions, whether about this situation or anything else, providing Anna's okay with it, we can talk about whatever you'd like. So get the questions into the chat now at Marxism Today. We'll work through them as we go. There's a question that was asked earlier on. If we can both answer this, it's actually addressed. Let me see who it's addressed to. Cormac _ Cormac said.
Cormac? Oh my God, that's my homie. That's my man.
Cormac?
Yes.
Hey-o.
Oh my God, he's one of my besties. Yo,
Good
shout
man.
out Cormac. Follow him on Twitter. It's AH_Cormac. Love him. He's great.
All right, well then I'm gonna let you take this question. Put it onto the little list here. It says, "What brought you to the left?" And this is a great question. Yes, definitely follow this person. I like them a lot. Why did the woke agenda make you leave? As it makes all of us leave eventually.
I think Mao's glorious hairline just had an unresistible call towards me, and I just had to join. I had to join. I had to hear what he had to say. Yeah, but unironically, I seek for a better world, and I want to help change this world, and I want to have a better future for my children and my grandchildren. And eventually I found through investigation, as well as through whether the investigation is in person, organizing, being more connected with the community, with the masses, or doing some theory, studying, hearing insights from comrades around the world, it eventually brought me to the left outside of the liberal sphere. So sphere, lol, sphere. I can't speak. Just how I look at Gary. But anyway, so yeah, and I left the left because the discourses on Twitter are insane. Literally, Like, stop. The discourse, half of the discourse is on there. I really think that a CIA like agent like just starts out of nowhere just for fun, like just to see the left like go crazy. Because even if they hadn't started it, we would have started it anyway. So like that's the one thing about the left that sometimes I'm like, yes, it's cool to like discuss things, but sometimes things are terminally online and they need to not be. So like for
Hey,
example, what is
wait a
one
sec. Wait a
what is
sec. Hang on. Listen.
yes.
I'm going to cut you off right there. I read Critique of the Gotha program just yesterday, and I want to question you on every single minutia within that. Okay, tell me, is Labour entitled to all it creates? Right now, go poll.
Oh my God,
Let's
go.
go.
No, I can't. Um,
Every
I can't.
week, it's the same fucking
Every
question.
week,
Jesus
every
Christ,
week.
is Labour entitled to all
Literally.
it creates? Jesus fucking Christ. All right, okay, anyway.
Oh my
I'm
God.
sorry, I didn't mean to
I
cut you off.
have trauma. I have trauma.
I
Twitter gives
feel
you
you.
trauma. No one never talks about this. I need to, there needs to be a study. But yeah, no. But yeah, that's why I'm on the left. How about you, Paul? Why are you on the left? Are you doing that just for likes, for views? Or are you doing it
Yeah,
because
yeah,
wow.
it's mostly about the views and the likes
Mm.
and the making loads of money. I love how much money I make. I make so much money. Like,
Yeah, you're rolling in money.
if I had a job, like any job, like just a normal minimum wage job, I'd be making like 2 grand, about 2 grand a month in Ireland. It's
Mhm.
like 11 something per 11 20 11 30 per hour minimum wage.
Mhm.
Because the cost of living is wild since Ukraine, since the war in Ukraine. And so, like any other job in the world, I'd be making, like 2 grand a month. And doing this,
Mhm.
I make like half of that. So I'm rolling in cash money, baby, and I fucking love it. It is so good. It's all about the
Yeah.
money for me.
You're really a Marxist influencer. You're going on those trips. You're
Yeah,
getting all those like you're
all
really
about it.
rolling in that cash. You really
I'm.
are.
That's why my
Wow.
Christmas tree's behind me. I
Yeah,
just
no, that because it's
I have so
so
much
expensive
space.
to afford a garbage bag to throw it in and move it out.
Yep, yep,
What
yep.
what
This is why
month is it, Paul? Can you tell me what month it is? What month
it's
is it?
it's Christmas month. It's the Christmas
It's
month in
Christmas
Ireland.
month? Okay.
That's the
All
it's
right.
the month that Christmas is in.
Oh, okay. So
Didn't you know?
y'all celebrate Christmas during June. Okay, I didn't know
It's
that.
just always December in Ireland. The weather's always
Oh,
shite,
okay,
so
okay,
it's
okay.
always
Sorry,
December. You, you
sorry for being so culturally insensitive. I
This is
didn't know that
deeply.
about
I
Irish
feel
people.
that was hybrinophobia. Everyone saw it right there. Clip that.
I'm so
Show.
sorry, y'all.
Cancel Anna.
Yeah,
That's enough. That's enough.
yeah.
Yeah, but
How
no,
could
for
I?
real.
How could I?
How did I become? How did I move over to the left? Like, like both my parents worked very low wage jobs all the time, multiple jobs actually, and it was shit. We had no money ever growing up. It fucking sucked. And, like I grew up in the 1990s, and so like we were going up
Yeah,
to the border. We were going up to the border in 6 counties in Ireland. So it's like 45 minute 1 hour drive, and I just see these fucking guys with big guns, big fucking guns here, and in the 26 county statelet in Ireland, our police force, the regular police force on Garda Síochána, they don't carry weapons. They don't carry any weapons. So this was really strange for me. I was like, why the fuck are these guys carrying big ass assault rifles and pointing them at our tiny little dingy tin can car
I
trying to
can tell
pass
you're not
over?
American, but anyway, continue.
Yeah. No, I mean, so many other states are extremely like militarized. In the US, that'd be normal. Even in France, Germany, other places. But in 26 county statelet, we do not have a militarized police force to the same degree. There are wings of it that are more militant, but we didn't really have that here. So I was shocked. I couldn't believe. I was like, "What the fuck am I seeing?" And I was like, so I asked the parents, like, "What the fuck's going on? Like, why are these guys pointing guns at us?" And they were like, "Oh, well, those are the Brits." I was like, the what? Yeah, the Brits. The Brits are here. I couldn't understand. I was like, what the fuck are the Brits doing here? It's Ireland. You know what I mean? I didn't really understand the difference, between one part of Ireland, the northeast of Ireland, and Ireland, the rest of Ireland. I'm always amazed by there's this difference between Northern Ireland and quote Southern Ireland. The northernmost point of Ireland is in the south of Ireland, if you'd believe that, because it makes loads of sense like that. It's in Donegal. It's at the peak of Ireland. But no, there's this little statelet. There's this little statelet that's controlled by Britain. And so from like my early days, like from the 1990s, I was always like, what the fuck is going on? Please British ruling class, could you fuck off out of here? Could you get the fuck out, please? And there was obviously a lot of violence as
Damn.
well growing up, with a lot of bombings, things like that. I remember like in the news seeing like all kinds of shit going on all the time, hearing about it. You've Everybody in the country has friends or family who've been touched by the conflict in one way or another, and that definitely gave me a consciousness of standing with the oppressed in one way or another. As vague as that was, just I'm on the side of the oppressed, not on the side of the oppressors. I'm not on the side of these big imperialist guys with loads of money and loads of guns and loads of weapons and shit. We're not on that side. And so yeah, so growing up my entire life, I was always on that side. Always interested in progressive politics. I would probably describe myself as a socialist, a democratic socialist, like Jeremy Corbyn, Bernie Sanders. That sort of how people would consider socialists. That social democrat is what we would know it as today, and what I would identify it as now. But yeah, it was just literally through seeing it, these things, through experiencing working class life. I was working, I came of age, got into the workforce right when the 2007, 2008 banking crisis was occurring. So all I've ever known was recession. I've only ever known recession. I know some people from like maybe 2005, 2006, 2007 in Ireland, they got to see the Celtic Tiger. They got to see some sort of economic benefit. Well, we never fucking saw that. Working class people didn't fucking see that. You know what I mean? So straight when I got into the workforce, it was always just awful, doom and gloom. Everything's broken, everything's wrong. NAMA are coming in, the IMF are going to come in, they're going to give us a loan, but there's all these strings attached. We have to privatise everything. It's all fucked up. There's going to be a bank bailout. Ireland's going to pay 42% of the bank bailout. Every Irish person is going to pay €8,500. Meanwhile, like everyone else in the European Union is going to pay about €200. Germans are going to pay about €400. I think Spanish people is about €100 to €200. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, why this discrepancy? Like, why are we paying so much more for this? What's going on here? And I suppose that was really giving me some kind of consciousness about imperialism and how it functions, with regard to its peripheries, even within what's perceived as like the core, the European Union as a core, like the periphery within the core. So yeah, that brought me to the left. And all my life I've been very much on the left. I was goofy as a teenager. I'd said some dumb shit. I had some like backwards ideas, as everybody fucking does. And over time, I got organized. I joined a front group, a socialist front group in 2016. That's when I would say I became an actual Marxist, because that's when I started engaging in practice. I started actually not only like reading Marx and reading Capital and going through all this shit, but engaging in socialist practice. Before that, I had been involved in various social justice and equality based movements. Like marriage equality was a big one in 2015. Obviously, the fight for abortion access in 2018 was a big one. But people forget how far Ireland has come. We were talking about this off stream a couple of days ago. Like, I was born into an Ireland in which divorce was illegal. That's the country I was born into. How
Wow.
repressive that was. So
Yeah.
that gives you a certain perspective. In the 1990s, all of the abuses of the Catholic Church came about. So I became very skeptical of the established powers, the established order, the hierarchies that existed, the way power was concentrated, and how it was serving these groups from abroad. And it's interesting as well, because when we think of the major imperialist influences in Ireland, obviously the main one historically has been Britain, but also Rome. Roman Catholic Church, and their own investments. They own massive swaths of land, and they have huge influence in society. And again, it's extracting its economic surplus from the people. It is exploitation. And then, of course, now more and more, it's more US imperialism. If you look today at the Irish economy, 8 out of 10 of the top 10, quote, Irish companies in Ireland are American multinational corporations. So capitalism in Ireland is not actually dominated by, quote, Irish capitalism. It's American capitalism in Ireland. That's the Irish economy in a nutshell, and that's many economies in a nutshell, and this kind of gets into semi-colonialism and the status of being an economically dependent country, and what that economic dependence then produces, how that creates a society that is based around that independence, a societal superstructure that reflects that dependent economic base, which I think is very, very interesting in Ireland today, because historically, when we were dependent on Britain, you had the West Brits, you had Irish people who were speaking with British accents. Everyone tried to copy like the London accents, and the higher your class was, the more British your accent sounded. Interestingly, that's shifted
Oof.
now. There's been a tug of war between Britain and America, and now it's more so you have people being more and more influenced by US culture. So US hegemony is actually becoming the dominant factor now. And I would say that within the 26 county state, US cultural hegemony is definitely the dominant factor. Uh, People often forget though that Britain's state forces still have a very active presence in the Irish state apparatus. For example, the head of An Garda Síochána, the Irish State Police Force, is Drew Harris. He was a former member of the RUC, the British colonial state police forces in the six counties, which you would make a pledge of an oath of allegiance, a lifelong oath of allegiance to the British royal family. So he still has that, and he's at the top of the 26 county police force. So, this is neocolonialism in action. Other things as well, like it's always coming out that, senior Irish government official is actually a British military intelligence agent. Just every other day of the week we find out this shit. Like it's just all the way down, all the way. The entire 26 county statelet in Ireland, the so-called independent Republic of Ireland, it's basically a puppet. It's a puppet for foreign
Yeah.
imperialist power. It's a glove through which the
Yeah.
hand of imperialism operates, and that hand sometimes changes, but it's still the hand of a foreign imperialism. Just the other day, people were raging about the fact that we don't have independence of our airspace. Our constitution declares that we do have control of our own airspace, but actually the quote RAF, the not the Red Army faction, interesting related to what we're talking about today, but the Royal Army Force, Royal Air Force, I think is what it's called. Basically the British Air Force controls all of Ireland's airspace. You know, and that completely undermines our neutrality and our independence. And people are like, "Hey, why is that happening? What's going on? That's so weird." It's so weird. It's so weird that they own our major trading ports in the southeast. It's so strange that they own all this land through the feudal ground rent system. It's so strange. It's like every time the mole pops up, they whack them all, and another one pops up over here, and every time they're surprised, people are
Yeah.
like, "Wow, what's this going on?" It's neocolonialism. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's literally just neocolonial. Like textbook, Kwame Nkrumah, literally textbook describes this shit. And
Yeah,
so yeah, that would bring anyone to the left. I think
for sure.
understanding that.
I think that like this is very similar. And like I know I said my reason before, but like I think learning about what's going on in the Philippines as well as like how similar, like there's so many similarities between Ireland and the Philippines. I feel like we've talked about this, how like
Mm,
Ireland like and the Philippines are both like semi-colonial. Learning more about that definitely radicalized me. I know I talked a lot about like Anak Bayan the last time I talked to you on stream. But like generally learning about, for example, the labor export policy of the Philippines was a huge game changer for me that really pushed me to the left because the labor export policy of the Philippines, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a policy that was put in by Ferdinand Marcos, who was the dictator during martial law in the Philippines. By the way, Ferdinand Marcos asked Nixon a year before martial law if he could do martial law, and Nixon said yes because he's a puppet. Like the Philippine government is a puppet government of the Philippines, right?
mm,
Learning about the labor export policy kind of just like cemented everything I believe in now because what the labor export policy is essentially is a policy in which the Philippines sells its own citizens as workers, and it's one of its most major commodities, right? And that manifests in sending nurses over to the United States or domestic servants. One of our major commodities is our own people. 10% of the Philippines, like the Filipino people, don't live in the Philippines, and a lot of this has to do with the labor export policy. We are deliberately not allowed to own our own land. 90% of the land is owned by 10% of the people in the Philippines, mostly by feudalists as well as imperialists. Imperialist companies from the US as well as settler companies established by Spaniards who still live there in the Philippines still dominate our market and our like entire lives. For example, Ayala is an electric company, and the owner of Ayala, which is basically like the only electric company in the Philippines, is the second richest man in the Philippines, and he is a Spaniard, right? And so it really just goes to show that like we're not living independently. We are living in another stage of colonialism, one where the extraction of wealth from our land, our resources, our people is still in full effect. Really, it's a mask, as you said. It's a hand, a gloved hand with a different glove on to look, I guess, more shiny and new,
Yeah.
right? But it's the same hand every single time. But yeah, no, definitely a huge contributor. And also connecting with other countries and seeing our shared struggles, like, and how like the working class in that country suffers due to the same reasons as this one, and like how we're connected, how we're different, how we can bridge those things is one of the things that attracted me more to the left. Internationalism has been a huge factor in like my consolidation of my own ideology. So I guess that's part of why I'm on the left. It's because I have always seen kind of like the world as struggling and in need of unity. And I feel like the left is the only one that actually pushes for that. So yeah.
Yeah, hard agree. Internationalism has always been a core part of it, and it's which I think is very interesting as well, because you're looking at this from the perspective of the Philippines, you know, and it's a national democratic movement. So there's a national element. It's national struggle. It's freeing the nation, and at the same time, we understand that as a deeply internationalist perspective.
Yeah.
It's not. I think people in imperial core countries equate this kind of national liberation struggle with, you know, with the really reactionary right wing nationalism that we see, like obviously with like the Nazis and shit like that. No, actually, it's as Engels said all those years ago that the people in these kinds of countries that are in states of such dependence are the best internationalists by being nationalists, which I think is quite an
Yeah.
interesting statement. Now, I will say that it's always worth, if you if you're ever going to whip that statement out, you really need to add context to it, because people could take that and go into all kinds of directions
Yeah,
with
though,
it.
like the discourse on Twitter will go crazy. You'll
They'll go
post that,
mental,
and people
yeah.
will be like, "You're a social fascist. You're a liberal."
Yeah,
Like,
no, not that. Definitely not that. What we mean by nationalism, as socialists, as communists, we mean national liberation. That's just the
yeah,
easiest way of saying it. There's no point even like mixing it out and like
yeah,
go getting into like some weird like national cultural kind of stuff. Just it's just national liberation. It's simple as that. There's national oppression, so we want to end national oppression. That's national liberation. Simple as that. That's all it is. No,
yeah. We have to have national liberation before we can have socialist liberation, right? Like
exactly.
we have to end national oppression to end class oppression, because we have to do this step by step. If we don't remove the imperialist, then we can't even remove our bourgeois class either, because they are enabled and enforced by the imperialists. So, period.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, you really nail meat heads. Absolutely. All right, great stuff. Let's see what other questions we have here. There were a few comments that tagged me. I'll just read them out quickly because it'll only take a second. Let me see. Eaton Man said, "That's Eaton Man. Eaton Man. Someone's Eaton Man. Marxism today. It's really scary right now. Stuff like this, and then the LGBTQ child getting assaulted in Navan. Yeah, that was awful. That was awful just a couple of weeks ago. Terrible to see, especially the week that was in it." Bruno Brito says EUA, I guess that's Estados Unidos Americas, like USA financed basically all coups and fascism in South America. Yeah, I
Very
mean
true.
Pinochet. We know Pinochet and what happened with Allende and so on. Of course, all across the continent. 100%. Let me see. Acormic has another question. Do you believe that SocDems are always beholden to the capitalist class, regardless of their wishes to progress the people's best interests? What do you think?
Um, yes. I think that like in like short, yes, but as you said, we talked about before, what do we mean by SocDem, right? Do we mean
Yeah.
by someone that is like leading a social Democratic Party, or are we talking about a proletarian person that is voting for them because they need these concessions from the ruling class to kind of like survive, right? And to live a better life under a class society. At the end of the day, like, yes, they are beholden to the capitalist class because if you're asking for these concessions, you have to be given them by the capitalist class. So that's one of like the weakest points of social democracy, is that ultimately at the end of the day, you're begging your ruling class to care for you when they profit so much off of not caring for you, right? But again, that doesn't mean that like we should be against people voting for these concessions, right? Or like we should be against like working class people and like, shun them, call them social fascists and stuff like that for voting for a social democratic party, especially I think like all over the world, but especially like in the global south and stuff like that, especially if those social democratic parties take like anti-imperialist stances, right? Like you can understand that definitely, but at the end of the day, like if it's an electoral party, if it's a party that seeks to just be in coalition in a government or just be in a government where there are fascists, at the end of the day, they are answering to the capitalist class. They may be answering to a left wing of the capitalist class, a more progressive wing of the capitalist class, but you are answering to the capitalist class. You will not overthrow class society, and you can't, right? So yeah.
Well, yeah, this is the really key point, because the way this is framed is very interesting, because it's about social democrats wanting to progress the people's best interests. And this is important. Who are the people? We need to ask, who are the people? Which
Yeah.
class of people are we talking about? Because if you have a social democratic perspective and you don't understand the fundamental antagonism between the working class, the oppressed, the imperialists on one hand, and then the imperialist bourgeoisie, the imperialist capitalists on the other, if you don't understand that antagonism, then it might be difficult for you to really understand how these people's interests aren't the same. They don't have
Yeah.
the same interests. So we need to ask whose people's interests is that's the first thing that I would say. And I think that people who've been around since like 2008, they understand this 99% versus 1%, roughly 99%
Yeah,
versus
they
1% kind of
understand it
idea.
as like a wealth disparity issue. They don't
Yeah,
understand it as an issue of the existence of class. That's the main thing, I think.
exactly. So it's just like, well, we'll just tax the 1%, and that's all we need to do. We just need to tax them, make life better, elevate everybody's comforts in life to what we would perceive as a quote middle class standard. Uh, just try and get that basically everywhere, and then everything will be okay. But we know that that middle class, what we perceive as a middle class standard of life, the house, the car, the little picket fence, all this, American dream kind of stuff, all that sort of stuff. We know what funds that, and we know how we get there, and that's actually ultimately a result of imperialist super exploitation of the global south. So while people may not be able to see that on the national level, and they will actually see it if they look really, really closely. They will see the oppressed nations even within the imperialist nations themselves. But they certainly, if you're someone who's in like France or in the United States, you're not going to see the experience of someone who's in Bangladesh making all of your clothes. You're not necessarily going to see that. What it's doing is you're exporting the misery abroad, somewhere that you can't see it.
Yeah.
When you're electing these social democrats into office who are just going to more equitably distribute the loot from imperialist plunder of the third world, the global
Yeah.
south, the
It's
imperialized nations.
it's fundamentally anti-imperialist, I will say that. And to be not anti-imperialist, sorry, anti-internationalist. I think it's
Mm,
fundamentally anti-internationalist to at the end of the day, right? Like maybe people who vote for these parties don't intend to be anti-internationalist, but social democracy can offer you a good kind of like concession, but it won't offer like anything outside of that, right? It's not a liberatory ideology, as we've been saying, it's an electoral one, but like social democracy will benefit at most a country or a certain group in a country, right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's so unsustainable too, right? We can't elect social democrats in every single government because then there would be nowhere else to export the misery, right? You can, if you have social democrats everywhere, like in the global south and the global north, then the states would not, like, they would collapse. You can't have a welfare state, like a capitalist welfare state, without exploitation still. So, like, for example, I mean, like the Nordic countries, right? They rely on the super exploitation of the global south to give their citizens that kind of like standard of living, right? That they have right now, which is declining, by the way. I will say, like,
Yeah.
since the fall of the Soviet Union, it has been declining.
Definitely.
And yeah, which just goes to show that, like, one thing about social democratic reforms that happen, it's interesting how when you look at history, they usually happen um because the ruling class is afraid that the people will revolt, right? Which can be a good thing, right? Also, because then you get a concession that you really need, you scare the ruling class, you show your class power, right? Um, but so, for example, this is the case for the Nordic countries, right? They started implementing these control, like these reforms after the Soviet Union was formed, and people in their countries are like, yo, we should do that. Like, they were like bordering this country, right, that was passing all of these reforms that was like helping the working class, right? And the people of those countries were very dissatisfied with the way that they were living. So the Nordic countries ruling kind of like class took a very smart move where they were like, okay, you can have these concessions, please don't overthrow us. And, you know, like, for a very long time, that has left the people of the Nordic countries very happy. But at the end of the day, it's caused more misery on the working class. And so to accept just social democracy is a good step for like your own survival for the short term, but at the end of the day, it's anti-internationalist, right? Like, you will always, like, if you benefit from social democracy, someone will be put in more misery because of it. So that's just the thesis um
Hard
on
agree.
social democracy.
It's like two people drowning and one person like tries to push the other person down to get a gasp of air, and like you
Yeah,
just fuck the other person up and you're not gonna survive anyway. Like it's you're gonna run out as soon as they run out. Like
yeah,
when they're gone, you're gone too, baby. Sorry, it was temporary. You fucked
exactly.
both of you instead of fucking solving the problem. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's a
Exactly.
short it's a
That's an
bandage.
amazing allegory because that's like exactly what it is.
When
Literally. Or like, maybe now I'm trying to one up you right now and try to find an example. It's like, I'll find an American one. You have two hamburgers, okay?
oh yeah, 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 yeah. Always.
And
I
one of them
always have
has
two on hand.
cheese and the other one doesn't because the other one stole the other cheese. I don't know. You know what I mean? Point is, it's bad. It's good maybe for one working class for a short term. It's bad for the working class as a whole,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
period.
the thing is that it's gonna get worse and worse as time goes on. You know, climate change has gotten so bad that in 50 years there are full countries are just gonna fucking not exist. They're just gonna straight up not
Mm,
exist, and these countries are relied
terrifying.
on. These countries are to be even a super cynical imperialist dipshit. These countries are relied on for super exploitation to funnel that wealth to get the big slurpy straw slurp all that surplus value out of the oppressed nations. That's not going to
I
fucking
can't
exist
believe you just
anymore.
said slurpy slurp
Slurpy,
straw.
slurpy, but that's what they do. They're like vampires. They're like vampires slurping out
Yes,
all of the
yes.
fucking
Yeah.
blood from these
For
oppressed
real. Like Damon
nations.
Salvatore. We're talking about Honestly,
I get the
if
reference. My
so,
wife
if
and me watch
so,
that shit.
maybe the capital class is not that bad.
They're handsome. You got
LOL.
to give them that.
LOL.
Flush moment, yeah. Yeah.
Flush moment. Anyway,
Yeah, but Damon was a handsome dude. Let's just be real. That's the
unfortunately, a
real shit that people
Confederate
want to know.
soldier. I forget this though. I forget this often, and then I remember he's a Confederate soldier, and I'm like, oh,
Ugh.
like,
Not so handsome
ew,
anymore.
disgusting. Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, I keep forgetting that, and then
Ick.
I rewatch Vampire Diaries, and I'm like, ew. I
Yeah.
haven't finished it yet though. Don't say anything because
Oh
I'm
no.
watching it right now.
I was just about
I
to spoil it
I'm
for you, so thanks for telling
I'm
me.
in Okay, yeah. No, I'm in like season I'm about to start season 8. I don't know why I'm so late on this, but like anyway, continue. Sorry. Not to distract, but
No, this is the question that people are, that was actually the next question on the list. What season of Vampire Diaries you guys are on? So,
oh, lol.
it works pretty well.
We should watch the Vampire Diaries together. LOL.
Live reacts to the
Team
Confederate Battle
Stefan
of
and Team Damon.
Vampires.
LOL.
Oh,
I'm Team Elena. I can't lie. No, I'm Team Klaus. Why am I lying? I don't like
oh,
Elena, but like whatever. I support her because she's a woman.
you got all
And I
three.
support her wrong choices. But yeah. Oh well. Anyway.
Yeah, wait, I think we were making some serious points about imperialism and social democracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically it's gonna run out. Like that shit's gonna run
Yeah.
out. Like it's there's we talk about the falling rate of profit for a reason. That's real. That shit is that's going away unless they find like new markets, unless they can colonize space or some shit. That's going. Just think about your life. Think about your fucking life, right? If you were born in like the 80s or the 90s, but there's probably people who were born in the 2000s here. Shit has been taken
Literally
out.
me, but anyway.
You know how it is. Shit has been taken out of the commodity circuit. Shit has actually been taken out of it. People used to make money from music. Remember that? That was a thing. That when I was growing up, people made money. I was growing up listening to fucking Oasis and shit. That doesn't happen anymore. Okay, maybe people can make money from a little bit of Spotify.
They sell it. They get money from merch now. They don't even get money for like their music. They get it from their merch now. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is happening everywhere. Like the productive forces are developing to such a level where the relations of production can no longer be sustained. Like they can't continue to make profit off of these things which are now free, like infinitely replicable for free. Well, basically free. Obviously there's electricity costs that go into it and the extraction of the power sources and so on. But in terms of like, it's not going to cost more to make like one I don't know, copy pasted version of a song versus two copy pasted versions of a song. That's done, So they need to resort to new models of making money from music and stuff like that. And it's interesting, the models that they're looking towards for making money off music in particular, like Spotify and stuff like that. That's more based on like more of a feudal way of making money, in the sense that they're just saying, okay, here's like a monthly rate, here's your patch, do your thing. Get your music, come here, and that's how you're going to get your wealth.
Taylor Swift is part of the peasant class.
Spotify users are actually the peasant class who are going to engage
we are
in
the
global people's
peasantry
war against the neo-feudalist system. That's the logical conclusion of all
When
this.
will the protected people's war of Spotify occur? When is it coming?
I think
National democracy for Spotify.
I think Xi Jinping is going to export it in 2050. He's going to hit the big red socialism button in 2050, and then all of us are going to hop onto the Belt and Road, and we're going to liberate the masses of the world from Spotify's oppression. And yeah, there you go, full socialism, 2050.
He said, "Hop on the Belt and Road," like it's an actual belt and road. Where like you can hop on. Yeah, yeah, the one line. It's a red sidewalk, okay, that you just walk on, like, or a road that you drive through. That's what it is, and it has the flags of China. Like it's real. It's real. Like
oh shit, here we go.
It cuts across the ocean. They're building it over. Anyway.
Neo Dangister. Oh man. Okay, yeah. So I think we've done social democracy to death. Sorry, social democrats. I'm sorry, socialists.
Social democracy is dead now.
It's gone. It's done. It's over. We did it. Boom. Bada bing. Bada boom. Socialists. People who want social democracy, you're not going to get it from the social democrats. You need to check out the anarchists. You need to check out the communists. You need to check out the Marxist, Leninist, Maoists. They're going to be the ones who are going to actually deliver that shit. They're the ones who are doing it right now. They're doing it in the Philippines. They're doing it in India. They're doing it in Turkey. They're getting ready to do it all over the world. They're reigniting it all over the world. These are the guys you want to look towards. So, you want it to happen? Follow the communists. So, let's take a look at the next questions that we have. Let me see. How are you doing on time? Are you still...
I am chilling.
You got time.
I am definitely chilling, yeah.
I got about...
Maybe I'll hop off in 30 minutes.
Yeah, we can do like half an hour more.
Oh my god, twinsies.
Oh my god. Well, it's gonna be 10 o'clock. It's gonna be 10 o'clock in Ireland. It's gonna be bedtime.
Oh really? Oh my god.
Bedtime.
Oh my god.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's like
you are up late. Is
like,
it not nighttime hour? Night?
2.5 hours from now. 2.5 hours from now, it's gonna be tomorrow for me. So
you need to go to
I can
bed.
let you know. I can let you know how the 5th of June is if you want in like 2.5 hours. But yeah.
Okay. I'm excited.
All right, so Grinning Guys asked a couple of questions here. Um, okay, so Grinning Guys says, Marxism today. What do you think of the strategy of starting businesses under a socialist set of social relations? Would this bypass capitalism and allow us to build transformational power? And the comrade, I think, reiterates the question or rewords the question by saying, can we build the new world in the shell of the old one in this way? So I think that this is a really good question to ask, because this is a very common question that people who are new to left-wing politics want to learn about, particularly people who got into socialism through people like Richard Wolff and the worker cooperative movement, things like that. They just sort of think, well, why can't we just open a bunch of worker cooperatives? You know, that'll provide the economic base. That economic base will create, some kind of socialist superstructure, which will then transform society more and more. We can gradually bring about socialism this way. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or do you want me to keep
I want you to
rattling
go
off?
off. I want to hear
Okay.
your go off.
Okay. Well, regarding worker cooperatives, we need to consider them at the level of the workplace, in the level of the workplace in which you have a worker cooperative. Yeah. Let's say there's multiple ways you can do this. You can actually just set up a worker cooperative. You know, 3 friends can get together, 7 friends can get together and start their own little business, and they can all be equal and have equal shares and ownership of the business, and they can all be owner workers. Yeah. And so at that level, they can feel like they're having socialist relations. You know, they can experience social production and social appropriation, as Marxists would say, to some degree. However, the issue is that they still exist within the market system. They still exist within the system, the overall global system of capitalism. So they're still existing within the what we would call the anarchy of production. No harm to our anarchist friends. That just means like the chaos of production and the boom and bust cycles of capitalism. They're still forced to compete with other worker cooperative enterprises, and it's still going to hurtle us towards the global catastrophe that capitalism is bringing us towards right now. So, for example, if every company tomorrow became worker cooperatives, we that wouldn't stop climate change and climate catastrophe. You know, the what is it? How many people are responsible for all of the global warming climate emissions in the world? It's like 100 people or
It's like
something
a
like that.
thousand. It's like a
It's a
thousand at
tiny
most.
number. It's like a tiny number of
Very,
people who are
very
responsible for
small.
this. Okay, well, just seize the means of production. The worker sees the means of production. We keep the current legal framework. We don't have proletarian states. We just in the workplaces, the workers seize these things. It's difficult to imagine that happening in this way. But let's say that it did. They were just worker cooperatives. They would still need to compete against each other. They would be competing for resources. They would be competing for profits. The rate of profit would constantly be falling. They're always trying to undercut each other, and you would still see the same exploitation occurring again and again and again, because we're still ultimately abiding by the system of capitalism. Now, under a working class state, under what we would call a dictatorship of the proletariat, we can actually organize worker cooperatives in a way that suits the ends of socialism, that works towards abolishing these market conditions and all of these things that are destroying the planet. But under a capitalist state, that's not possible. So that's the real issue. It's not that like worker cooperatives have nothing to offer whatsoever. People can certainly get a taste of social relations and socialist relations in their workplace. But the problem is they're still operating within the framework of capitalism. You know, they're like little hippie communes. You know, like imagine like a little hippie commune where people are like, oh, peace and love, and we share everything. And it's like, okay, you share everything, but how do you get your money? Oh, well, you know, we just have to sell all this shit and go to work during the day. You're still participating in capitalist society in every way, um, but you just have this little island of socialism within capitalism that ultimately just maintains capitalism. And so that's the issue. You can't really do that. You need to actually destroy the old capitalist state apparatus and guide it consciously towards socialism, towards the egalitarian, stateless, classless, communal, international society that we need to save the planet, which is not going to happen soon. It's going to take many, many years. It's going to take hundreds of years. Stalin said it was going to take a full epoch. You know, he said it was, going to take probably between 200 or 300 years before you get to a genuine international communal world. But
Yeah.
it's going to take time. It can't happen within the current framework. There needs to be a push beyond capitalist dictatorship and into working class power. You need worker states to be able to carry this forward. At least those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts, Anna?
Yeah, no, my thoughts are very similar. When we say we want to control the means of production, we want to seize the means of production, right? We don't just mean like we want the workers to have like control over the factories, right? Like, yes, we do want that, just like we want workers to like unionize, and like this is a form of survival. This is also a form of like, as you said, tasting socialism, right? But we want to change the mode of production, right? Like we want to change it from capitalism to socialism. And if we even think of the mode of production of capitalism, right? As you said, it would probably take hundreds of years to like reach that mode of production of socialism, right? Just like capitalism took a while to be created, right? The mode of production of capitalism begun with, like European colonialism and so on and so forth, but like it began to be established between like the late 1700s, the early 1800s, right? So like it had to be formed. So like and that doesn't happen like, I mean, in this case it's probably the worst case, right? But it doesn't happen passively, right? It doesn't happen like democratically. Oh, let's reform this, that. No, it happened very violently, right? It happened through a seize of power, right? And that's something that we have to do as well, like ultimately, especially when it comes to facing the climate catastrophe, right? Like yes, we need to unionize our workers. Yes, we need to be and participate in worker comparatives. But at the end of the day, if you live under a capitalist society, what you're doing is protecting yourself in a union from capitalist society. You're not actually doing, like, you're not living under socialism, right? You maybe wish you were, but you're not. So it's important, like, to understand that, like, we have to change the mode of production, not just the structure of a company. We need to change the mode of production, and the mode of production is something that like affects the entire world. So that's why we believe in like revolutionary socialism at the same time that we support like workers comparatives and unionizing and all that stuff. So
Yeah, that was a
yeah.
really good point about the international aspect of this, because this is a really challenging subject to broach in the age where we've gone through globalization, where we have global supply chains. It's not as simple as just seizing the means of production at a national level. If you
Yeah.
want to actually see the socialist mode of production flourish, this needs to be a truly international project. That's why we talk about, you get a worker state, and there's going to be elements of socialism within that worker state, but there's also going to still be elements of the capitalist mode of production while we're
Yeah.
moving towards the international system. Because we can't, just imagine your workplace. Imagine just go into a shop tomorrow and just look at any product on the shelf and just look at where everything within that came from. Just pick up an apple. Where did that apple come from? How did it get there? How was it transported to the shop that you're in? Okay, who paid for that? Okay, what company does that come from? What country did it come from? What were the working conditions like? This is when we talk about alienation and commodity fetishism and Marxism. This is what we're talking about. We just see the commodities in front of us. We don't see the social relations that go into producing those commodities and getting those commodities onto the shelves in front of us. And this causes so many problems today in this age of globalization, because you have these global supply chains. How the fuck do you deal with that? How do you just nationalize Google or Facebook or any of these things? How do you nationalize the internet? You need
Yeah.
a united international communist movement. And you can't just have a liberal, airy fairy unity where we all just pretend we all agree on everything. No, unity is achieved through struggle. So that collective struggle is what's going to achieve the principled unity required to bring about the socialist mode of production. And that's very difficult to do, because there aren't that many revolutionary socialist movements that are actually making progress in that direction today. I mean, you can count them on one hand, if we're being real. So we've got
Yeah.
a lot of work to do internationally.
Yeah. And solidarity doesn't, because it's something that I think about a lot. Well, like that, like when I'm talking about solidarity, people assume when I'm talking about solidarity, I'm talking about solidarity between ideologies or between organizations, right? Even if they have opposing views, right? I'm, but when we think of solidarity, we have to think about solidarity within our class, right?
Yeah,
Ultimately, yes, all of these ideologies could work together for a certain goal and everything, but that's not the solidarity we should focus on, right? We have to have a mentality of our solidarity has to be with the rest of the working class. Because the working class are the ones that are overexploited. They're the ones that are suffering, right? So, yeah, that's just something that I notice a lot from like people that like I talk to about like that don't understand what solidarity means. It's not between like solidarity between ideologies, which is also important, but like solidarity between people, between the masses, right? Because we're the many, they're the few. If we have solidarity, if we have internationalism, they literally stand no chance, right? So we need to build that up, not just through ideological basis, but through on the ground work. And as you said, struggle together for that future. So yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and there is a place as well for levels of ideological unity. Everybody standing shoulder to shoulder when fighting fascists. No doubt about it. No
For
questions.
sure, yeah.
If people are opposing that, then they can just fuck right off and go into their dusty old book clubs and get nothing done and help nobody. They can fuck right off. They're not welcome in our movement. We stand shoulder to shoulder with anarchists or even our misguided social democratic friends who actually oppose fascism, the masses, the rank and file, who genuinely are good, are well intentioned and want to see an egalitarian socialist society and socialist future. They just have misapprehensions about how to get there. We stand shoulder to shoulder with these comrades in our shared collective struggles. There are different levels of unity, of course, in terms of organizational unity, in terms of Communist Party unity, so on and so forth. But yeah, that comes about through struggle, you know. So yeah, really good questions, really interesting questions, and yeah, really great to hear all those. And I
Thank
think
you for these questions. I love them.
yeah, thank you so much for them. The next question, I'm like, oh shit, are we gonna get into this one? This next question is the question which has been raging for a couple of years now. The
Oh, is
Totrum.
it that one? Ooh.
It's that one. It's the question. All right, everybody, drum rolls. Drum rolls. How should left wingers deal with patriotic, quote, socialists? I like how they separated left wingers from patriotic socialists. I think that that's important. I've said a lot.
LOL.
I've said a lot about
I
this before. I'm gonna hand it over to you and let you go off on that one.
um I mean, I think the best way to answer this is that like you won't see them in person, so there's no reason to deal with them. Except
Boom.
that's kind of a lie. Okay, so they don't, yeah, they don't exist in person, but I did go. This is a story. This is not even addressing the question right now, but it kind of is. I went to this like really big just like broadly anti-war protest. Well, I was working at it actually. Um and there was a bunch of people handing out flyers and stuff like that. And a certain institute was there handing out their flyers. And I didn't realize
Oh,
that it was them.
three
And I was
letters.
just yeah,
First one
and I
C,
was
last one I.
yes. Yep.
Hmm.
And I was just like, I was okay. So if you look at my room right now, I have a bunch of like random cutouts from like magazine or not magazines, but like newspapers and stuff like that, like socialist newspapers, because I use it to decorate my room. Okay. It's bad. I read the stuff. Okay. I read people's things, but then I take out the parts that I like and I post it on my walls. But anyway, so
Okay.
that's why I was grabbing everyone's flyers. Okay. And then I come up with to these people and they're like, oh, like we're having an anti-imperialist meetup like next weekend. You should come. And I didn't know it was them. I was like, yeah, sure. And then they hand me the thing and it said, it had their lovely logo. And I was like,
Here we go.
um, I I don't know. I have like I was trying not to be mean to them. Like I need to be more confrontational. But they were like, "Oh, can you come?" And I was like, "I don't know. I have an Anak Bayan meeting." Like very like I'm part of Anak Bayan, kind of thing.
I'm a
And then they
mouse.
went and then they went and then they were like, "Oh, that's perfect. You're Filipina. There's gonna be another Filipina there." Just like you have a singular Filipino. That's crazy. It was like we can have two. I was
Oh my god.
like, LOL. Um, and then I found out that the Filipino they were talking about is someone that I fought with on Twitter. So I was like, LOL. And
Oh my
then
god.
literally next
Jesus.
weekend, the weekend after, that video of them holding the flags with the Z and stuff like that?
Unfortunately, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. that was that weekend. That's what they were trying to invite me to, and now I wish I had gone.
I can't believe you missed that opportunity. You could have been there front and center. You could have been
I
there. Iconic
I know,
moments. That's going to go down in the
bro.
history books.
I could have gone and I could have taken like a selfie. It would have been so iconic. Like I could have. Oh my god, the memes would have been so funny. Oh, I
Ah,
wish
you
I'd
could have been
gone,
there, Anna.
bro.
You missed.
Bro,
You missed. You just
literally.
missed. You need to strike while the fire is hot. Iron's hot.
I know, I
I
know.
missed it. I
Anyway, so
missed.
that's my thing. But there was like 30 people at this meeting. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is like you're probably only going to encounter them in that situation, like where they're handing out flyers in a protest that they did not help set up because they hate half of the people that are solidarity orgs there because of whatever fascist reasons that they can come up with, reactionary reasons. So like how do we deal with them? I mean, delete, block, I don't know. Like,
Like
I mean,
fascists. Isolate the
yeah,
backward. Yeah.
yeah, but at the same time, I mean, like, I say that, but I'm kind of hypocritical. I quote tweeted a couple people recently, and Paul was like, "Don't give them attention." It's like,
Yep.
whatever.
They're fascists.
It's like they're so dumb. But like, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Like, maybe ignore them. Maybe continue doing the work that you do because the people, their target audience hates them. As I feel like I was talking to Paul about, like, they're not going to make a lot of strides because the people they're trying to kind of gain the support of are people who are more kind of like conservative, reactionary, believe anti-communist, like motives. So like if you come up to them and you're like MAGA communism, as you can see in the videos of them coming up to Trump supporters and being like MAGA communism, they're like, get out of my face. We hate communism. Like, so it's just stupid. It's just not gonna work. So like basically I would say ignore them. Like they don't actually have any kind of like weight on this world except on the internet. They're just buffoons on the internet. They will all become like fascist Eurasianists or like be part of a Nazi party within the next 10 years or vote Republican or run Republican. So like, like it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
it really doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. No, no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, they just basically are fascist. I mean, I will, of course, separate people. There are people in who have gotten caught up in that movement who just don't
Mm-hmm.
understand. They just have misapprehensions. They see these, strongman figures who are
Mm-hmm.
charismatic and funny and they're calling people out and they feel like they could take on the world. They've got some liberal great man theory ideas about socialism. And so they cling on to that and they think that that's it. That's the way forward. And I will say, like, for if you can identify people who have just been misguided, and if you can win them over, then great. Okay, you
Yeah,
try win them
that's
over
true.
if you can. I would say most of them you probably can't. Not, most of them are probably sock puppet accounts. Let's be real. Most of them are probably just sock puppet accounts, posting the
Yeah.
same shit and just copy pasting from like Discord servers and shit like that.
Yeah.
Um,
All 115 of them.
all
All
115 of them
115 existing patriotic socialists.
each with like 6 accounts, which is a pain in the arse. But
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, so just pretty much just like ignore the other ones. If you feel like you can win them over, then maybe give it a go. I'd say you probably can't win most of them over. As we say, like when we're looking at the masses, we're looking at the people broadly. We can kind of identify them as in three categories. There's the advanced masses, there's the intermediate masses, and there's the backward masses. We always talk about like with the backward masses, you're going to try and elevate them if you can. If you can bring these people up and elevate them to a socialist and progressive consciousness, okay, give it a try. But realistically, a lot of them are just going to require isolation. You just want to cut them off. You want to cut off their influence from everyone. Don't give them attention. Ignore. Just move on. Block, as you said. Just get on with it. Then you got the
Yeah.
intermediate masses. You got the intermediate masses, and this is where it gets confusing because a lot of these guys are throwing out sort of Stalin and Lenin and strongman figures of socialism and throwing out these quotes to justify bigotry and hatred and all kinds of nasty stuff. So they might appear to be the intermediate masses. And the way we treat the intermediate masses is basically just to elevate them, to try and elevate them to the advanced masses, which would be a full-on scientific socialist Marxist level of
Yeah.
analysis.
Hmm.
So that's generally how we would approach it. Like with the advanced masses, we try to unite through struggle. We unite the advanced masses. With the intermediate masses, we try to elevate them to the level of the advanced masses. We work with them, we struggle, we educate, patiently work through these issues. Don't try and browbeat people and and tell them they're fucking idiots for their misapprehensions. There's a whole fucking state system there set up to make people have misapprehensions about communism and Marxism and socialist countries and socialist experiments. So don't be a dick about it. Be patient, be kind, and elevate that intermediate section. And with the backward sections, we're talking about the full-on, like, racists and bigots and xenophobes. If there's a way you can talk to them, maybe there's someone in your family, you can talk to them one-on-one in an isolated kind of environment. Maybe you can get them to see reason. Maybe. Less cases, it's going to be less successful in most cases, I think. I don't think it's going to work in most cases, So in those cases, you just need to isolate. The patriotic socialist movement, the figureheads of that movement, who I know reject the term patriotic socialism, but fuck them, who cares? We can call a spade a spade. They can call it whatever they want. This is how we identify them. It doesn't fucking matter. Fascists get mad when we call them fascists, because they're like, no, that's not the word. That's not the definition of fascism that we use. It's like, well, fuck
we are right-wing populists.
See, get the fuck out of here. You're fucking fascist. You're the most reactionary elements of the imperialist bourgeoisie. You are fucking fascist.
We are center.
Yeah, that's it as well. You see a lot of these PatSocs guys.
We're not left or right. We're forward.
Okay? Oh my fucking god! It's not left versus right. It's up versus down. That's
the second way. We're the third way.
Who said that historically? Oh, now they've got fourth way. Then we've got the fourth theory, the fourth position, the Duganists. So these guys. That's the big one at the moment that the PatSocs are pushing at the moment. Fourth positionism. Yeah, that's Duganism in a nutshell.
That's too many positions.
We can't handle that many positions. What do? We're stuck at second. We're the communists in the second positions. Then they got the fascists in the third positions, and then you've got this new wacky.
Too many dance moves.
It's literally just fascism. It's still class collaborationism. It's still nationalism. It's still all this bullshit. It's the same shit, different arsehole. That's all it is. Sorry to say.
Period.
Yeah. So that's what I would say. Just again, identify: is this an advanced? Is this intermediate? Is this backwards? Deal with accordingly. Isolate if they're really reactionary. If they're spreading hatred. If you see people spreading like anti-LGBT plus stuff, racism, xenophobia, these are people that just need to be isolated. Just basically ignore them. Ignore, block. Don't even give them any time of day.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
Nothing else to add to that. Agree.
All right. Now I'm conscious of the time. It's coming up to 10 o'clock in Ireland, which is my bedtime. It's time for me to go to bed, put my little Irish head to rest, get a little nappy nap.
Nappy time.
It's nappy time, long nappy, overnight nappy nap. So I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in today. I hope you've all found this useful. Anna, thanks for coming on and discussing this with us all and all of these various conversations. It was great to discuss, obviously, the left-wing extremism that we oppose. Rigidly, we
100%.
Vehemently, we are
so
totally
extreme.
Against. We do not.
So extra. Why are they so extra?
What is this free Lena stuff?
Bro.
We do not uphold people saying free Lena in our chat. We definitely would not encourage people writing free Lena in our chat right now for the
or anywhere else.
Or anywhere, like definitely not graffiti
on solid walls, surfaces,
on private property. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do it.
Really,
it's not cool.
It's so not cool. Just leave the left.
It's a crime.
It's the woke agenda getting into your head.
It's the woke agenda. Don't do that.
All right, folks. That's enough nonsense from us. Listen, thanks very much. Thanks, Anna. We're going to be doing this way more often.
Thank you, too. We are. We're going to hop on. Yeah, we have to figure out what other day we're going to hop on soon, but we should do it soon.
Soon, yeah, definitely soon.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's gonna be like Tuesday or Thursday, but we're definitely gonna do it again some point this week, and definitely at least once a week we're gonna do something like this. We're gonna talk about the news, a little bit of theory, a little bit of history, do some little Q&As, have a bit of fun. Maybe turn the sort of initial section into like a little podcasty sort of thing. The first hour or so, have a little bit of fun with that for people who are on the Spotify, the peasants who need to engage in PPW against Spotify feudalism. We're gonna help them out too, of course.
Free the masses.
People's war for people's peace, as they say, isn't that?
People's war for people's peace. We are the vanguard.
All right, folks. Thanks so much. Cheers, everyone in the chat. Thanks, Anna. Grumil Mahagwiv.
Bye.
Take care.